Well, good morning. I'm Jeff Coleman.
And I'm Debra Pinkerton. Welcome to Morning Light.
Well, it seems like everything is changing when it comes to choosing a mate, and we're not so sure of what we think about the idea of one man and one woman for life. A new study on marriage is out, and it raises some big questions, Debra. The Morning Light panel will offer some answers, I hope.
And here's a preview of what's coming up later in the show. November is National Adoption Month. Pennsylvania has about 14,000 children in the system. Nearly 3,000 are waiting to be adopted. A Pennsylvania couple considered the idea of adoption, where they will share how God opened the door in an unexpected way.
They do have a great story.
They do.
Well, it's been on a downward trajectory for the past 70 years, and the number of first-time marriages in America has finally dipped below 50%, according to Barna's new The State of the Family report. First-time marriages now represent just 46% of the American population. Two-thirds of Americans were married in 1950. Quite a big change in culture.
That is a change. Now, this doesn't mean we're giving up on marriage altogether. It just means we're waiting longer. The average age for men to marry is 30, 28 for women. Barna finds 1 in 6 adults will divorce, and more than half of that number will get remarried. While people may still believe in marriage, few experience it, though, for life. That's sad.
It's a major change, yeah. And in case you were wondering, LongeviQuest announced the title for the longest-running marriage. It goes to 108-year-old World War II veteran Lyle Gittins and his 107-year-old wife, Eleanor. They married on June 4th, 1942, and the Army gave Lyle a 3-day pass from training. 83 years and still going. So I'll ask the Morning Light panel 2 questions. What's the best advice to divorce-proof your marriage? And secondly, how can churches promote the ideal of marriage while still welcoming second marriages and blended families? Cynthia, Lyons, Matt Brouillette, and a new member of our panel, Dr. Jack Wright. We're so honored to have you all here this morning. Let's Matt, begin with you on this idea of marriage. What do you think? You're a dad and now a grandfather. Mm-hmm. What do you sense is happening in this generation when it comes to commitment in marriage?
Boy, I think it's that we don't hold a high enough view of marriage, really a biblical view. And it's funny, we're talking about this because I started reading a book by John Piper called This Momentary Marriage. And it's really powerful in the convicting of, what marriage is, that it's an institution of God and it represents Christ in the church. And I don't think we hold that high enough and recognize how important that institution is. And I think it definitely gets to our churches, your second question. But to me, and recognizing that myself, that this is really something that I need to represent in my life that displays God's glory.
So did you start out with this idea, as Matt's describing, of this momentary marriage, that this is really a picture of the gospel, that this is what Jesus did for us, is what marriage is? Or is it, when most of us go into marriage and we think it's about companionship or relationship or friendship or someone to hang out with, where did you start with this, and how has your view of marriage changed over the years as you've grown?
I went into it thinking, boy, I really am in love with this man and it's time to get married. And I came from a family of pastors. And so we were lucky enough to be married in the church by my uncle, who was a pastor. So we did have a biblical view of what was ahead of us. That being said, and I know that we've probably all said it before, marriage is wonderful when it's wonderful, but it's really hard work. And so I think my view of things, and maybe others as well, the longer that you're married, viewpoints do change because your world changes. Whether it's you're bringing children into it, whether it's a political foundation, whether it's the church is changing and you need to look somewhere else. There's a lot of things that change your viewpoints.
But what do you tell someone? Your kids are now in kind of the marrying age range. What do you tell them when they say, "Hey, Mom, I think I found somebody"? What's the advice you give?
Why? I say, why do you think that this is the person? It probably is. I just want to know why it is that you think that. And my kids come from, You know, my in-laws have been married for 62 years. My parents were married for 53.
So they're surrounded
So
by...
they are surrounded by long-lasting marriages, and good and bad. I mean, we have not all been through flowery, wonderful every single day, but this is stability. And I want to make sure that the mate that they're picking also knows what family looks like, you know, not just at Thanksgiving and Christmas, but every day. We want them to be involved with us. We want to be involved with them.
Dr. Wright, you've watched couples at the last stage of life working in hospice. What is the secret to those marriages that endure when a spouse is next to the spouse as they go to heaven, as they transition, and you hear and you see that relationship and you go, how did that last? How did that work?
I would say they're committed. I think they started committed. They decided to stay committed, whatever happens, till death do us part. Some of the illnesses I saw were horrendous, disfiguring illnesses, and yet they each loved each other. They saw past the physical, and they wanted what was best for each other. And although it was sad that one of them was leaving, they knew they were going to a perfect place, a better place.
But so social media, though, takes that image of, and really distorts it, right? I mean, when you're looking for the ideal person, you're not fast-forwarding life to the last moments when you see them not in the state that they were in that beautiful Instagram engagement post, right? So how do you prepare a young couple to say, by the way, that what Cynthia's talking about, till death do us part, better or worse, that really means something?
Well, I think it's tough. You know, I think of couples where they were just newly married, and normally it's one day at a time, that process of commitment, but sometimes something happens right away, you know, a terrible accident or something. And even I'm amazed that you're hanging in there through this. You really took your commitment seriously. And so I think that's what you got to tell young couples. I think the church needs to step in and say, this is a commitment for life. That's what God intended. That's what Christ
That message needs to be turned up a little bit,
yes,
probably.
Yeah, and the church and the congregation need to come together, all the different married and not married, and support each other.
What can a church do both at the front end and then after a divorce, or when a family is reborn and there's now blended families coming to your church at Thanksgiving or at Christmas and these other times? How do you deal with those complexities in love, but at the same time advocate for the ideal?
Well, I think it is important that we advocate for the ideal, and I think I was even reflecting on how many times have I heard sermons or a focus in our church, and I think not enough. Because again, I think it is an institution that is so unique. We always think that it's between a husband and a wife, but God really says marriage is a reflection of Christ in the church, what Christ has done. And that's why we are called to sacrifice in that same way. So I think that the one thing is that the church needs to elevate its vision of marriage, while else at the same time recognizing we're in a fallen world. And when you have two sinners coming together, being one flesh, there's going to be challenges. I know in my 30 plus years, we've had our challenges. But we set from the very beginning, we will never talk about a divorce. And that has allowed us that even when I say I love you, right now I don't like you.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
But we will push through this. And I think the other key, and I just came from a breakfast with a brother, having accountability, whether it's in your church or individuals, people who spur you on in your faith and in your marriage. I think that's been critical for me, of having a brother who will speak into my life and say, how are you and your wife doing? And being honest in that.
And not to be the ones that says, give up, pull it now.
Correct.
How has marriage changed you?
Oh, wow. You know, it's funny looking back 32 years ago and, you know, just listening to this conversation. I remember vividly standing in front of the church and thinking, you know, just being just so in love with what the situation is. You know, I'm hoping I'm not selfish. You know, I live with a man that puts up with a lot. And, you know, we aren't perfect. And there are going to be times where we have those squabbles, et cetera, et cetera. You know, we talk about the church and coming around everybody that's in need and maybe not at the time. And I know there's a local church, the Encounter Church, over the weekend that just had a marriage conference. And they had like 45 couples. that came together, newlyweds as well as couples that have been married for 60 years.
But
it's so important.
It seems like these churches have to get over the idea that we don't talk about those things, that these are private, because marriage impacts the community.
Well, and I also think we can't be as private. I was raised in a home where if something was wrong, like, you shut that down. That was not discussed. It's amazing to me, from a woman's perspective, if I'm in a conversation with another woman or another couple and I say, like, yeah, boy, we had a doozy the other, whatever it was, all of a sudden that other woman goes, you did?
Yeah.
Did that happen before? Yeah, this is how we, and before you know it, there's so many more people that didn't know or didn't feel comfortable talking about a situation that they've already been through.
And nobody was moving out. There were no U-Hauls the next day.
No attorneys were called.
Got the last minute here. Advice to a person who is saying, but I just can't find the right person. And you see these numbers creeping up, 27, 28, 29, 30. Some cultures, this is even having an impact on cultures all over the world, Asia and Africa, where they tend to marry younger. It's changing there too. How do you get over that ideal, aiming for the ideal, and then trust that God has brought you together with the right person?
Well, I think you do have to trust God. If you don't have a potential mate now, you have to trust God that He will put someone in your life. But not all are called to marriage. And those people will be fulfilled in other ways. So to try to force the issue, I don't think that ever works. I think that's a recipe for disaster. So I think you have to really trust God that He will guide your paths as He desires.
Well, thank you all for being open and talking about this more, and we'll put all your numbers on the screen for anyone who's having marriage trouble today, because you're the ones to call. Thank you. Well, November is a time to start celebrating the holiday season, but it's also the month to celebrate adoption and help children find their forever homes. Meet a Pennsylvania family who prayed about adoption, and God answered in an unexpected way. You're watching Morning Light right here on Lighthouse TV.
Welcome back. Through adoption, you can make a difference in a child's life. A Pennsylvania couple knew that, and they thought about adopting, but the opportunity came about in an unexpected way. Dr. Robby Waller and his wife Phoebe are here to share their journey. Thank you both for being with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Why don't you talk to us about how your journey started as far as meeting each other?
Yeah, so Phoebe and I both went to Liberty University. We were introduced through kind of some mutual friends our freshman year, and it was pretty evident to me from the beginning that she was high class. She was smart and beautiful and wise, but also really godly, and it was really attractive. So we dated for a few years and actually got married between our junior and senior year of college, and then God gave us an unexpected baby about 2.5 years later, right between me going to medical school. That was sort of another connection that we had, which was I was pre-med and she was nursing. So we ended up in Memphis, Tennessee for my med school and had 2 more unexpected children out there. So we ended up moving back to central Pennsylvania for me to go to residency in emergency medicine, and that's kind of how we ended up here.
And we were talking earlier, Phoebe. Talk to us about adoption. You started looking at that when you were at school.
That's right. I think it first came up in a bioethics class that I had to take for my major. And we were just talking about how embryos that are left over after in vitro fertilization, they just get forgotten. They either frozen indefinitely, or you can donate them to science to be used, or you could throw them away. And just what do you do with that dilemma? There's another option. You could adopt them as well. And so I remember sitting in class thinking, if we believe that life begins at conception, then I think these embryos need to be adopted. We ended up having a few acquaintances that went that route. I think they call it snowflake adoption sometimes.
That's a beautiful name.
Yeah. But the Lord eventually, He gave us 3 of our own children, and then He, I think, led us away a little bit more towards adopting an older child who was currently feeling the need for parents and things down the road.
So adopting was on the table.
It definitely was, and it was something that I think she felt the call to first through that embryo snowflake adoption, and then, you know, sort of brought it up to me as we were dating and first got married. And, you know, as a Christian, what are you supposed to say? Like, of course we're in favor of adoption. And James 1:27 says, pure and undefiled religion before God and the Father is to take care of orphans and widows in their time of need and to keep oneself unspotted from the world. So obviously we're pro-adoption, and I think that that was something that I was definitely thinking about, but logistically it was hard. We had looked into it when I was in my residency, and it wasn't going to work. It was just too difficult. Plus we had 3 kids of our own, and we sort of had some miscommunications along the way, and I was basically just being pretty passive about it. And at that point we didn't have anything particularly planned of how we were going to be proceeding with it.
So you were being passive, but you were praying.
I was going to say, that wasn't good enough for me. I think I knew that adoption can be really hard, and it's a big transition, you know. So I needed to know that he was on board and he was for this. And so eventually, as the years went on and it didn't work out, and then it was quiet on the back burner, and I said to the Lord, you know, did I hear you wrong? I think it became a bit of a spiritual struggle where I wondered if I could really hear my shepherd the way I thought I was hearing him. Because if Robby wasn't 100% on board, then, you know, the Holy Spirit wouldn't be saying 2 different things. So I told the Lord, I'm just going to wait until Robby brings it up at this point. You know, I'll let you let us know when we're going to move forward, and it's going to have to be Robby that does the starting the next time. So I think I started really praying about it the beginning of 2024, because I didn't want to not be able to hear the Lord's voice. And I think he used the little stress inside me to put me on my knees asking, you know.
And being patient.
Right. Lots of patience.
So let's fast forward to June of 2024. That's when things changed.
Yeah, very unexpectedly. So I'm an emergency medicine doctor. That one Saturday morning, I got up to go in for an early morning shift, had to be there at 6 o'clock. And on the way in, I was kind of feeling a little bit like a failure. Like, hey, I feel like I miss opportunities to speak up and to share truth because I either don't know what to say, or I'm too scared to say it, or you know, I don't want to cause any type of stress in the relationship. And I feel like I was calling out to God out of that feeling of just not doing well. And God, I told him that morning, I want to be bold and I want to be courageous to speak up when I should, which is generally not something that I do. So I got to work about 6 o'clock in the morning, and just a few minutes after I got there, one of the nurses came around the corner and said, hey, we need help out front. There's a mom delivering a baby in her car. So we all rushed out front, and the mom had actually already delivered and had a healthy baby girl. We worked on moving them back to an exam room, and one of the first things that the mom told me as I started to talk to her was, I want to put this baby up for adoption. So, you know, I checked out the mom, checked out the baby, I cut the umbilical cord, and as I was taking care of them and just thinking about what she had said, I started to think about us a little bit. And, you know, we've been thinking and praying about adoption. This baby needs a home. This mom can't take care of this baby. Maybe we could adopt her. I walked out of the room and mentioned that to my colleague, who he's a fellow believer, and instead of discouraging me and saying, you're crazy, he said, who do you want me to call? So while I was in the midst of taking care of this mom and baby and working on getting them transferred to labor and delivery, I also spoke with the social work group at our hospital and legal department, and we kind of ended up coming up with a plan. And this all happened again, you know, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday. So it all happened before I got a chance to talk to her about it. So that phone call was kind of abrupt. I basically said, hey, good morning. Did you sleep well? Do you want to adopt a baby?
Yeah, it's about how it went. Yeah.
Oh my goodness! And you're probably just waking up thinking, what am I hearing?
Right. Yeah. First of all, I was like, well, there's no way they're going to send this baby home with us. But if he needs a place, sure. You know, we can do that. We get extra love in our heart. And then after he got off the phone, I was like, oh, he brought it up. You know, even if this child isn't our child, that was the first time I'd heard him talk about it, and I'd been praying about it for several months at that point. And so I immediately started having conversation with the Lord about it at that point. Yeah.
So what were the next steps? I mean, this was so unexpected and had to be God's plan.
Yeah, so over the next few days, we met with the social workers at the hospital, met with the mom, and as I mentioned, she was born on a Saturday morning. The mom kind of reinforced that she wanted us to adopt her baby. So Monday, the mom was discharged home, and then Tuesday morning, we picked her up and brought her home. And we named her Amanda, which means worthy of love, because we wanted to communicate that this baby was worthy of love, but so was her mom. And God had a plan in this whole thing that he had ordained and had been working on since even before we got married.
Yeah. And Phoebe, how did you know that this was God's plan?
The Lord just made it so obvious. He heard me asking so many times, how do I know that this is you? And so he showed up, and I can't tell you how many different ways. Just from putting me on my knees a couple months before so I could see the answer to prayer. He brought a friend to my house the week before who asked me, so what were you guys, when you talked about adoption, whatever happened? And I could verbalize out loud again that I was waiting to hear from the Lord, and specifically from Robby. My daughter, Brinley, asked me a couple weeks before Mandy showed up. She said, when are we going to adopt my baby sister? And I was like, that's not how things work. We'll just wait and see what the Lord does. Maybe there's a baby out there for us. And the social workers at the hospital, lawyers that showed up and waived consultation fees, our church just showered us with whatever. Even the timing, I can't go into all the different ways, but the fact that she was born on a Saturday morning meant that we were her option. It was us or it was the foster system. And so it was just so clear. It's like, okay, Lord, let's go. So
we were seeing some pictures of her, just adorable. How is she doing today?
She's doing great. She's been probably our easiest baby. She is super happy. Her siblings love her. She loves them. She's meeting all of her milestones. She's about 1.5 years now. She's running around the house. It just really brings a lot of joy to people. She brings joy to our family, brings joy to her grandparents, my parents and Phoebe's parents, brings joy to all the nursery workers, and is just doing really, really well.
You say joy. How is she bringing joy to your lives?
Well, we're just thankful that her birth mom gave her to us. I think she was a means that the Lord showed our family how much he cared for all of us. So she came into our home, and the love that we share for her brings joy, but also the closeness of our Heavenly Father, who walked alongside of us for every step of the way, took care of Mandy, took care of me, took care of Robby, took care of my kids. His plan is good. So.
Yeah. In addition to being a happy baby, she is just a tangible reminder of God's providence in our life.
Yeah. And what is your message to someone who may be interested in adopting?
So, adoption can often be a lot harder than what we went through. I don't want to paint an overly rosy picture, but the same God who took such good care of me and answered all my fears is the God who wants to walk next to all of his children who want to go through the adoption process. And so I think, when you pray, you can see his answers. So my first message would just be get on your knees and ask him about what you're thinking through, what you're worried about, and he'll answer. Yeah.
What a beautiful journey. Thank you so much for sharing this with us.
Yeah,
thank you so much.
Stay with us. We're back right after the break. Welcome back. Wild Heart Ministries held their 3rd annual gala this weekend at the Farm Show Complex. Wild Heart's mission is to rebuild, restore, and revive the Allison Hill neighborhood of Harrisburg through acts of kindness and service. The gala raised nearly $130,000 of their $150,000 goal. Our director and executive producer attended. Looks like lots of fun. And coming up tomorrow on Morning Light, nearly 39 million Americans are living with diabetes. We will talk with a Pennsylvania doctor for some tips on how to keep the disease under control. Plus, we will hear how a diabetes diagnosis led a Pennsylvania man into a relationship with Jesus Christ. And that's a look at what's coming up tomorrow on Morning Light. Now, Jeff, your closing thoughts.
Go Wildheart. Amazing. 10 years and all of that work God's
Yes.
done through them.
Wonderful.
Incredible. Well, Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene built her brand as a guns-drawn partisan warrior. She's interrupted opponents' press conferences. She's yelled out during the State of the Union and trolled opponents relentlessly on social media. It's earned her millions of followers and just as many enemies. But Sunday, she did something few politicians ever do. She apologized.
I would like to say humbly, I'm sorry for taking part in the toxic politics. It's very bad for our country, and it's been something I've thought about a lot, especially since Charlie Kirk was assassinated.
What an incredible moment. And then paraphrasing Ephesians 4:32, she said, I really just wanted to see people be kind to one another. You see, Congresswoman Greene is a Christian. She's identified that way. She's spoken plainly about what it means to be a follower of Jesus. And like many of us, she says she wants to change. She wants to be different. Or as she says, to put down the knives in politics. Imagine the change if others followed her lead, who humbly took a position of saying, yes, Lord, I'll be different. I'll fight like a believer. I'll be a Christ follower. For Debra and the entire Morning Light team, I'm Jeff Coleman. Thanks for beginning the week with us. Now go check on your neighbors, and then let's plan on meeting back here again tomorrow morning.